Okay. Hello and welcome to the HTML5 lecture series at SNHU. I'm Tom Adamson, visiting professor. This is lecture 26 and it's on CSS3 and it's on the 3D cube, the rotating 3D cube. Let's look at the screen here. Here you have a rotating 3D cube, and notice it's doing it automatically. There's some things I'd like you to see about this. First of all, it keeps on doing it forever. The second thing is that there's a bit of transparency right around here that allows us to peek inside the cube and see where the other faces are. Notice that as it goes by, there's a face 6 down here, and you may not be able to see it, but there's a face 1 that's right at the top. So what I want to do now is let's go to the board and let's analyze what's in this cube. I'm going to be right here, and I'm going to draw it out. Here's the cube that I see, like this, like so. This is my 3D cube. And obviously it's rotating back and forth. It's going this way, and it's going that way, and it's got a face out here, which is face number 1 is actually on the top, and this is face number 2, which is really the front. And then as it goes that way, I have 5, which is over here. And then on this side, I have 3. On this side over here, down at the bottom, I have face 6 right here. Now, someone looking at this, someone might say, wow, that must be real complicated to do. That's what someone might say, and that's understandable because it does look like it's complicated to do. So there's a person down here, and this is the kind of person that'd probably say that. There's their ear, and here's their eye here. Okay, he's going, wow. And here's his neck. And that might be real complicated to do, but there'd be another person over here that would know how to do it and say, no, it is really easy to do. And of course, a person that would say that would know what they're doing with this, and they would probably be a person probably with glasses on, and it would probably be a young lady here that would say that's really easy to do, and she'd be pointing at this here. And you know, being pretty expressive about it. So someone would look at that and say, man, that must really be complicated to do, and this other person that knows how to do it say, no, it's really pretty easy to do. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the screen and stay on the screen for a while, and I'm going to look at the source code as to how this was done. So we're going to stay on the screen, and I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to scroll here, and as I do that, I'm going to scroll down pretty slowly, and one of the things I want you to see is that this is all style sheets. Every bit of this is style sheet, style sheet, style sheet, style sheet, style, right up to here. All that is style sheet. And then what I have here, this is all HTML, and then I have here 6 images. Stay on the screen here. So what you see that I have here, I have just style. I have no scripting. There's absolutely no scripting at all in here. There's nothing but style sheets. And what I've got here, here's my HTML, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images that I'm pointing to. And I have some attributes here. I have a class identifier for all of these as a face, because they do have things in common. And I have an ID identifier here. That's to keep them separate, so I can pick one out. I can pick out the first one, or the second one, the third one, fourth one, fifth one, and so on. So what I'm going to do now is come back to the board here, and let's list the things that I used to make this cube. The first thing I used was HTML. The second thing I used was CSS, actually CSS3. The third thing I used was some graphics. And the fourth thing I used was Notepad. Every one of these are free, which is great. I like free. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at, I'm going to go back here on the screen, please. And I'm going to look at my cube again, my rotating cube. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the images that was used to make the cube. There's my images, say on the screen. These are the images that I use. There's 1 PNG, 2 PNG, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the images are about this size. And notice that to use them on the cube, I had to expand the images. And you might say, where did you get these images from? Well, I actually got them, stay on the screen please, I actually got them from GIMP, gimp.org. And let's go to gimp.org. GIMP is a great graphics program. GIMP.org. And there it is, GIMP 2.8, and you can download it for free, and it does fantastic things. Here's some screenshots for GIMP. Here's some stuff here that you can do with GIMP. Stay on the screen. What you can do with GIMP, what a lot of people don't realize, is that you can customize the GIMP interface. Unlike some of the other products that are for sale out there that do photo stuff and what have you, GIMP can also do photo stuff and do a lot more. And people aren't used to the interface. They're not used to the fact that you can actually customize the thing. But I would suggest, if you haven't tried GIMP, download it, give it a try. There's tons of really good tutorials out there about GIMP. Okay, we're going to stay on the screen there. And I'm going to come back here to my rotating cube. So what I'm going to do now, staying on the screen, is I'm going to create my own cube. Okay? And to do that, I'm just going to minimize this guy for a while. I'm going to right-click and go to New, and go to Text Document, and I'm going to put New, N-E-W, Cube, C-U-B-E, and I'm going to make it, I'm going to delete the extension and make it HTML, and then say yes to the warning message, and then I'm going to right-click on it and open it with my favorite editor, Notepad. And there's Notepad right there. I'm going to double-click on New Cube, and there's nothing there, as you would expect. So I'm going to come over here with Notepad, and I'm going to put in a doc type. T-Y-P-E. Doc type is going to be HTML. Okay. And then I'm going to put in HTML. Like so. And then I'm going to put in the head, and I'm going to put in the title so the world can find this. I'm going to call it My 3D 3D Cube. So far so good, right? And then I'm going to put, that's the head. This is where I'm going to put my style, right in here. That's the only thing I need, is the style element. And then I'm going to end the head element. And then I'm going to come here into the body. And then I'm going to come down here, and here's where I'm going to end the body element with the closing tag. And here I'm going to end the HTML. Then I'm going to do Control S to save. And now what I'm going to do, in order to save a lot of issues, I'm going to come here and I'm going to copy and paste something. And I'm going to come over here and do a paste. What you see that I pasted here is I pasted the 6 images. And I'm going to come here to the screen. These 6 images, they're all in a folder called images, and that's the name of the image. And all I've done is I've made a class identifier and I made an ID identifier. So what I'm going to do, whoops, I got to change that to style. I got to take the D out of this. What I'm going to do is let's look and see what that web page looks like when I have those things there. So I'm going to come over here, staying on the screen. Okay, and let me get style right there. So I'm going to do a Control S to save it. I'm going to come here and I'm going to do a refresh. When I do that, there's my 6 images. Now, all I have to do with those 6 images is arrange them in such a way that it'll start looking like a cube. So what I need to do now is I'm going to come up here to where the style is, and I want the body. I'm going to have that as a selector, the body. I want the background of that to be black. And then I want the foreground, which is just color, I want that to be silver. And that's going to take care of the body. And I'll do a Control S to save it, come over here and refresh it, and there it is. Now it's all nice and black. What I need to do next is I need to do something about the cubes. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come right here. I'm doing a copy and paste, so bear with me. I'm going to do a Control C here and come over here on the style and do a Control V to paste it. Here's what I'm doing with every one of the faces. Notice that this is all the class face down here. So what I'm doing with the selector, I'm putting a dot face up here, which means that's the class. I want the positions to be absolute. I want the height to be 360, the width 360, the padding 20, and the background color to be RGBA, and I'll explain that. Let me take out the position absolute first. You'll understand the reason why I'm doing that when I show you this. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to do a refresh. Okay, now let's see what happened and see if what happened makes sense. I'm coming back here to the screen. What I did here is I said these are all class face, which means that whatever I do to dot, the dot means class. Whatever I do to face selector, it'll do it to all of them. First thing it's doing, it's making the height of them and the width of them 360 pixels. So from here to here is 360 pixels, not from here to here. From here to here it is. Look, see the padding? The padding is 20 pixels. That means there's 20 pixels here and there's 20 pixels here. So 20 pixels plus 20 pixels is 40, plus 360 is what? 400 pixels. So every one of these is 400 pixels wide. Now, the RGBA, that's red, green, blue, and the alpha, what I'm doing for the background, which will take care of the padding's the background color, is I'm making it so that it'll turn out to be a light gray, and the alpha is 0.5. So now I can begin to see through this, okay? I can begin to see through this stuff right here, and that's what I'm looking for. So if I put in position absolute, all these things will stack in the same position. They'll all be together. I won't be able to see them individually, but I want you to envision that they're stacked right on top of another. So I have to put in position absolute because obviously I want to be able to move these things around. So I'm going to go back and put in position absolute. Stay on the screen there, please. And when I do that, Control V, Control S, and I come here now, and I do a refresh, and now they're all together. With 6 is showing last, and the reason why is because that's the last one that was down here. Okay, the other thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to come here, and again I'm going to do a copy paste, so bear with me on the copy paste thing. Okay, and I'm going to do a Control C. Whoops, that didn't work. Let me do a Control C to copy it. And I'm coming over here on this page here. I'm going to do a Control V to paste it. Okay, now let's see what I've done here. Oh, this is heavy duty. All right. Here's what I've done. What I'm saying is that I'm using the ID identifier right here. And for F1, that's number 1. This is WebKit. WebKit, you use that prefix if you want this to work on Google Chrome and you want it to work on Safari. Now, if by the time you're watching this lecture, Google may have made it so that you don't have to do this. So if it doesn't work, just take off the -WebKit stuff. So this is a transform. What I want F1 to rotate around the x-axis 90 degrees and then translate along the z-axis 200 pixels. Now, I need to come here to the table. Okay, I need to come here to the table. And I need to explain something. These are my images. Okay, my images are like this. So this is the way the images are looking at you. Now, the z-axis of the image is always perpendicular to the face. So if I rotate the face and then translate along the z-axis, I'll do it this way. What's important is the order in which I translate and rotate. Let's assume that all of these are together. I want this number 1, I want this to actually be on the top, like this. What I know is that every one of these from here to here, make believe they're square, is 400 pixels. So essentially, if I took the number 1 and I rotated it 90 degrees around the x-axis, I would do this, right? But it'd actually be in the middle. And then if I translated it 200 pixels, it would now be at the top. Okay, but it'd actually be this way here. That's the way it would be. Okay, now let's look at something. If I take this and I translated it first, 200 pixels, and then rotated it, it would be out here. So what I have to do first, I have to rotate first, then translate. Let's see if that's what I'm doing. I come back here to the screen. Can we come back to the screen, please? Okay. What I'm doing with F1, okay, which is the one with the number 1 on it, I'm rotating it around the x-axis first. Okay, so it rotates this way. The z-axis is now up, and I'm translating it up 200 pixels. That's how it gets on the top. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, I'm going to come back down here. I've got this one on the top now. Number 2, all number 2 has to do is just translate. That's going to be the front face. It just has to come out 200 pixels. And that's what it's done. There's no rotation for number 2. Okay? Now, let's go back here to the screen, please. Number 3, I'm going to rotate around the y-axis 90 degrees and translate it 200 pixels. And I'm going to come back here and see if that's what I'm doing. Number 3, I'm rotating it around the y-axis 90 degrees. Okay, now the z-axis is to my left, and I'm translating it 200. So now it's over here to the left. So I got 1, 1, and I got 2, and I got 3. Let's see if doing 4 makes sense. With 4, I'm rotating it 180 degrees. So 4 is completely turning around, and then I'm translating it 200 pixels. So 4 must be the back. 5, I'm rotating it first around the y-axis 90 degrees this way, and then I'm translating it 200 pixels. So the only thing I have left is the bottom one, which is number 6. What I'm going to do with the bottom one, I'm going to rotate it minus 90 degrees. Then I'm going to translate it 200 pixels. Then I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees, and the reason why I do that is so the 6 and the 1 line up. That is, the 1 doesn't go this way and the 6 goes that way. They're both the same way. So this is all used in order to make these align themselves, and that's the code, and hopefully it's pretty straightforward. You can tell from here what size each of the faces are. They're 400 pixels, and so if you know that, then the center is 200 pixels out from the center. Okay, staying on the screen there, I'm going to do a Control S to save it, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do a refresh. And as you see, nothing much has really changed except I see number 4, which is the back one. Now, if you recall, one of the things I need to do is I need to bring all this together. This has to work as a unit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to put a parent element. I'm going to make all these images a parent of a div element, div, and the ID of that is going to be a cube. So all of these will behave together as a unit, and I'll just call it a cube. So I come down here, and here's the parent. This is where it ends, div. Okay? So the cube actually goes from here to here, and all of these images are siblings now, and they all have the same parent, which is the cube element. Now, that's all fine and dandy. Let me do a Control S to save. Let's see what I want to do with the cube. Okay. Control C. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put in a cube. I'll put it right up here, rotate up here. Here's where the cube is, Control V. The cube position is relative. The margin, here it is, right here. The margin is auto. An auto margin automatically aligns it in the center. The height of the cube is 400 pixels. Well, that's what it should be, because that's the actual height of each of the graphics. The width is 400 pixels. What I want to do with the WebKit to transform the style, I want to preserve the 3D, and I want it rotated about 0 degrees around the X and maybe about 20 degrees around the Y. So let's see what happens. And I come over here and I do a refresh, and it's sort of there, not quite, but it's sort of there. Now, if you recall, when looking at this, what I needed to do is I needed to have a container. If I'm going to come back to the screen here, if I wanted this cube to actually do something, I need to put it in a container in order to animate it. Now, if you look at it, this is the front face, and what I did is that I rotated it slightly around the y-axis by 90 degrees. So this right here, there's face number 5, and you can't really see the other faces yet. So what I need to do is I need to make another parent element outside of here that's a container, because in order to have a 3D illusion, I need to have this inside a container. So that's stay on the screen. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to put this inside a container. So this here, I'm going to make a new parent, and it's going to be a div element, and the ID is going to be equal to container. And then I'm going to come down here, and the container will end right here. So the container now contains all of these. Contains all of the elements here. And if I come over here now and do a refresh, there's really no difference. What I want to do now is I want to use the container as a selector. And so let's see what I'm going to do with the container. Okay. Control C. I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to come here to where I've got container, Control V. There's my container. My margin is going to be 80 pixels, and you can play around with this. My perspective is 800, and that's how far away or close I am. There's my perspective origin. I'm going to do a Control S to save it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and do a refresh. Now, good, thank you. Now if you notice, this is beginning to look like what I expected. And so we're getting there. And the key was here to make sure I had a container for this image. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and do something like this. I need one more thing that I have to do. And I'm going to come over here and look at this. And this is all the stuff that I had. And I'm going to see what's different. What is different in my cube is this line right here. And I want to look at that line. I'm going to come up to the board. I mean, up to the screen. Stay on the screen, please. Okay. I'm going to look at this line right here and see what this means. This is WebKit again, and it's an animation. And what it's got here is got ANIM2. Well, what is this? This is actually an identifier for a little program that's going to do something. Look, down here I have this @ WebKit, keyframes, this and these match. So this is ANIM2, okay? And it goes from here to here. That's where it goes from. It says ease in and out. Well, that's what we saw about this. It's sort of, as it rotates, it went faster, and then it started slowing down. And then it rotated, it started going faster, and it started slowing down. Make it go for 20 seconds, and that's about what it takes. Infinite means I don't want it to stop. I could put milliseconds in here if I wanted to. Alternate means I want it to go back and forth like this. I don't want it to jerk and start from the beginning. And here's what I want it to do. I want it to go from the rotation on Y of 0 degrees. When it's halfway through the 20 seconds, which means 10 seconds, I want it to do a complete rotation around the Y-axis of 360 degrees. And then I want it to go to, near the end of the 20 seconds, back to 0 degrees. And that's what it does. So this is the key part of the code right here. This is very powerful, and this is all CSS3, and it's all done in Notepad. What I can do here is I can make a program. This essentially is a program in CSS3, and I can use all different kinds of commands here, and I can break this up from 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. I can have the cube start moving around the screen, control it almost any way I want it to. So stay on the screen, please. So I'm going to come back here to my cube. I'm going to zoom back to the default size. Okay, if we could come back to the screen, please. I mean to the board. I'm sorry, to the board. Okay. All right, so to wrap this lecture up, I hope you really give this a try. The code is very straightforward. If you understand how this works, you have a powerful tool for doing some really neat 3D graphics that will animate. And keep in mind, all I used was some very basic HTML. I use CSS3. I use a graphics program like GIMP, and I use Notepad. So on our next lecture, we'll find out some really other cool stuff that we can do that's really very easy to do. That's free stuff. Okay, that's it for this lecture. Thank you for attending.